Hi everyone, welcome to another Keys to Success video. Today we're also going to be looking at Tracer. There was actually a lot of interest in the last flanking video, and there were quite a few questions in the comment section, so I thought it would be prudent to take an even closer look at it and kind of add on to the lessons that we talked about in the last video. Now, in the last video, we talked more about how to flank and positioning, but today we're going to be talking about when to flank and timing. Now, the cool thing is with all the submissions that I did get, a lot of them being Tracer clips, we have one clip that's going to be from a silver player. That's this video that we're looking at right now from Fluttershy. And then after this, we also have a clip from a Masters Tracer player who's actually quite a good player. Was low Masters, apparently had just made it into Masters, but at least mechanically easily could be kind of like mid-high Masters. So it's going to be interesting because both of these players have some problems with their flank timings, but they're going to be very, very different problems, but still along the lines of when to flank. Now, the problem with Fluttershy here in this VOD is that Fluttershy is kind of too cautious and is very, very safe. They go on these big flank angles as if they're gigantic flank routes. So I'm just going to kind of let this video play to start out with. But Fluttershy here, just right at the choke, you can see they come through and then goes into the far side. Now this is like a flank route, yes, but like the flank routes on the map are different than actual like the process of flanking. Flanking a team is more along the lines of like where the team is, rather than the actual flank routes on the map. So you don't have to use flank routes to flank a team. If you're a lower rank, I just wanted to clarify that. It might seem a little bit silly to say, but I assume that since this individual has submitted this clip to me, they watch my content, it's very possible that there was that confusion there. So there's not a lot that you actually have to pay attention to in this clip, just this very long and honestly pretty ridiculous flank route that Fluttershy is taking. So while there is this engagement happening right at the choke, Fluttershy is flanking all the way around, through the far side, up on the bridge, through the halls, and now we finally get into the position where Fluttershy is ready to go. Now, the fight has already happened pretty much the entire time, and now Fluttershy is, not even in really the greatest position ever, because inside doesn't have full vision, doesn't have the option to engage on pretty much anybody. And, it goes in, they're going to get a little bit of damage onto the Moira, and then run away. Moira's going to fade after, and this engagement kind of doesn't do much. She gets one clip fired in this fight, and then retreats. So let's take a look at this kind of a second time. Backing up. Okay. So the topic of kind of flanking. So instead of going for this long route where you might end up in a different position, and we are going to look at a section on the second point here where this does happen, and we can talk about it a different way. But so like we talked in the last video, kind of whenever the defending team is holding an area, you can usually kind of draw a circle around them. And then a flank is really going to be anything that's not the main direction where your team is attacking. So if we're just going to very crudely make this a box, we'll say that this side is going to be where your team is attacking from. That means that if you're attacking from here, here, or here, that's kind of considered a flanking attack. Now, you want to be in a position, there's kind of like two kinds of flanking, and this is more of like a soft flank idea. And soft flanks are going to be what you're going for most of the time, and we'll talk about when hard flanks are really good a little bit later in the video. But if you are in these positions, you're kind of using in cover, but again, you're going to want to cause the opponent to invest resources, including attention to you instead of the actual front line. So if more than one person looks at you, or any resources that go onto you, but you're small, hard to hit, you use cover, you can recall it anyway, any of those resources that are going onto you instead of the front line are going to be hopefully wasted, and it makes your team a lot easier. It makes your team's job of pushing through this choke a lot easier. Additionally, if you are in these locations, like this one is going to be a really good one. So this happens quite a lot on Numbani in the pro play, is when you do have these kind of softer flanking positions, chipping, attacking, looking for opportunities, you can also be in these positions where the opponent is going to want to fall back to. Why is this really important? Because if you're in these locations and the opponent is falling back, people usually don't fall back for no good reason. If they're falling back, it probably means they've used cooldowns, they've lost a trade, something like that. They're low HP, they need to stabilize or recover, and you kind of waiting in open arms to catch the low HP people retreating is going to give you just absolutely free kills. And it's also just going to make you a much larger threat. If they know you're there, they know that they can't retreat that way, maybe they retreat in a less optimal play. So let's play this again. Fluttershy flanks through. But the first thing that's kind of big important is that if you were closer here, your Hanzo landed an arrow onto Veriton here. So he was in the window, shot Veriton, got him to half HP. If you're sitting here, or if you're sitting right here, boom, easy kill. And you're just a lot more present in the fight. You know, maybe if you had put in a little chip work, it's probably unlikely in this situation that you would have gotten the Hanzo down half HP, but you know, it is potential that he was already low and you presented a good target for the Hanzo as well. Instead of always following up, you can do something that, you know, if you get somebody low, the Winston can dive in, or the Hanzo can kind of finish him off if they are fighting in the open. But this being so long, you've essentially made this fight a 5v6. It's as if you were, you know, it's as if you were dead. You've made yourself a non-factor in this fight completely, and for quite a long time. And for, you know, probably about 20-25 seconds in this fight, you only use one clip of your gun. So be a lot more present in the fight, especially for areas like this where there is kind of a hard grouping. This is where you're doing the soft flank. There's no big target. There's not like an Ana sitting in Narnia that you can hard flank or something like that. You need to be present, applying damage, even if it's chip, because you're looking for opportunities to follow up on damage or set up plays with like a Winston diving, or again, in this case, you know, Hanzo finishing him off with an arrow. So that's the first thing that should have happened. Just be a lot more present in fights and a threat. Kind of, you know, predict where the opponents are going to fall back to, because if they're falling back, they're probably going to be prime picks. Okay, let's go to the second point. Today's video is brought to you by NordVPN. Now, if you haven't heard of NordVPN before, they're a very popular virtual private network service provider. They won Best VPN in 2019 and were the only VPN to get full marks from PC Mag. Now, most people are going to be using a VPN in order to increase their privacy, encryption, or let's be honest, just unlocking American Netflix. However, one of the big uses that is used quite a lot in higher level Overwatch is the ability to pick your server. So whether or not you want to force East or West Coast games, especially since a lot of the pros are going to be on the Western server, or like some of the pros do, if you want to tunnel all the way to the Korean server just to see what it's like, or play a lot higher levels at the top 500 Korean ladder, then NordVPN is a fantastic option. Super fast servers in 60 countries, no data logging. If you're interested, check out the link in the description below for 70% off. And thank you very much to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Okay, so on the second point here, you're going to see more of a hard flank opportunity. Now, this hard flank here is, I will just turn on the overlay again. So Fluttershy, our hero, is taking the floating platform, going to be far offside, and very nicely, there's an Ana. Whether or not he saw this Ana doesn't really matter. We're just going to say that this Ana was scouted. You know, it's probably not that crazy that, you know, scoped shots from this range, you're probably going to be able to see them and know that there's an Ana there. You also have a Winston, so you can go for these engagements and kind of float around, do a couple loop-de-loops apparently, and then attack the Ana. Now, this is a pretty good play, but kind of the key about this play is that if you get in position before the team is ready to go, then you literally just wait, because your position hasn't been given away. You just wait. That's all you do. And then as soon as the fight happens, even if there's a 5v5 or something that happens here, you fight with the Ana immediately, because just you fighting this Ana, even if you don't get the kill, that's going to be absolutely massive, because you've removed the vast majority of their healing. They've got a Lucio. Even if he amps, it's not a crazy amount of target or crazy amount of healing. Even if it is single target, you know, he's got his beat. Maybe you force an ultimate out. It's just great the entire time. But let's see how this plays out instead. So healing, healing, healing. And once again, this fight breaks out before you. So at higher ranks, if you're going to be using comms, it's more unlikely that you're going to have kind of a comm call like this be successful at the lower ranks. I'm just being practical. But anyway, so you're still flanking around here. And then this is the situation where things are, you know, not as good as they could have been, is that your Winston had to use his ultimate, and now he's hopping into the backline. So you're in this position here, but the lack of awareness in terms of the front line about what your team is doing, and then once this Winston does end up in the backline, you don't recognize this, and you jump down onto the backline looking for a target. I actually put a clip into the Wrecking Ball instead of the Ana. So from your perspective, we can look at this again. You're floating in. You can't see the blue, like when you're playing, you can't see the people in the blue outline, but you can see red outlines. But you can definitely hear the Ana. It doesn't take too good of a setting. So you can even see that scope shot right there. You definitely know there's an Ana there. A little bit of delay going back there. There's a Winston. So, constantly be looking to where your team is. You know, maybe you're not familiar with kind of all the sound cues that are going on there and being able to recognize the state of the fight. You know, there's a pretty famous clip where in a tournament, for example, I don't remember which tournament it was, but the casters lost feed and they were actually able to successfully cast just off of the actual sound cues there. So maybe that's something that you can try and do, is just listen to a recording of one of your games or something and try to listen to specific audio cues. I wonder if I could do that actually. You know, just as an exercise. Let's see if I can't turn Blackboard on. Yeah. Just listen. Well, let's actually sound up. Okay. Just listen to this fight. Okay, bring it out of there. Okay, so we're gonna look at that again, except this time I'm gonna kind of start and stop based off of any audio cues that I'm hearing. Okay, so that first big one that comes out is that Junkrat's concussion mine. That's immediately a cue to me, is that Junkrat's positioned somewhere. It's very likely going to be onto the high ground, but I'm going to expect that that's because he's repositioning, but that also makes him a lot more vulnerable to actually take out, because that is his mobility, so he can't run away from me, and he can't pull range nearly as easily if he's used one of his concussion mines. So first thing, Junkrat is repositioned, and he's a more susceptible target if I see him than he was previously. There was the stun sound, so somebody got hooked. Winston jumped in, he landed, and then after that he primaled. So after that, if I heard this primal, that means the fight has started. And if I'm, no matter, like if I'm a flanker or something, it means that I need to start contributing to this fight. If not now, probably 2 seconds ago. So there's like just the Roadhog is pelting away, just full on left clicking. And then on the point, somebody's on the point, which means that I also really need to be joining the fight in some variety, and then the Junkrat tire is also going. So if this is a good opportunity to assassinate the Junkrat, if I know where he is, which I should know where he is based off of the sound cues. Junkrat is a very noisy character, and then of course the incessant beeping is going to be telling me that there's something going on the point, which I assume is going to be the Winston. So this is what's going on at this point in time, is that the Winston is there, and you are right here. Okay. So the game, like the sound design of Overwatch is actually really, really fantastic. So definitely learn in order to kind of like not only just learn the sound cues of Overwatch, but train yourself to be able to react based off of the sound cues. Now there's certain times when playing without audio is going to help you. You know, if you play with music to relax, something like that. If you play with, you know, even communication with your team is helpful. But if you play out of voice comms, just make sure that you don't tilt. First of all, understandable. But yeah, and then there's also kind of a few times that people have trained with the audio off just to make sure that they are more situationally aware. You know, it's kind of a weird one. But if you handicap yourself in terms of the ability to hear enemies, you have to be looking around a lot more and actually to find that information. So playing either with sound quiet or muted or with music playing does force you to be able to, or have to look around a lot more in order to actually get a feel for the flow of the fight, even more accurately than sound might. So yeah, bit of a tangent there. So the moral of the story here is really, whether you're soft flanking or whether you're hard flanking, you want to be timing it with your team. Preferably, you know, it doesn't really matter where you're a second early or a second late, but basically at the same time that your front line is engaging. You don't want to make it a situation where your team fights a 6v5 and then lose, and then you go in, and even if you get the kill, you're going to be like, oh guys, I'm always killing the Ana, what are you doing? If you're attacking and even getting the kill, especially on a 2CP fight, if you get a kill, even a double kill after your team has already lost or forced to stabilize and can't follow up on what you're doing, you're going to lose anyway. So to make sure that your kills have impact and to make sure that you can get kills in the first place, make sure that your flank attacks are well timed with your team actually engaging, and you can see them. So now we've switched over to the Masters player. We're going to be taking a look at Cross in player slot 4, also on the Tracer. Now, in this game so far, Cross has been playing extremely well, like really, really quite well. They almost actually full held on the first point because of how well Cross was playing, getting a lot of backline assassinations, a ton of duel wins, a couple losses when the opponent was playing Ashe, just because the Ashe landed a very nice headshot, but really no engages that, I could say were like really poor decisions. So Cross is playing really well, and when he submitted this VOD, he said that he had just made it to Masters, and really with his level of mechanics and kind of, on-screen, like, what do I do based off of what I see, he could easily make it to kind of mid-high Masters. So still some room to climb based off of Cross's performance so far. And they did full hold, so you can see that the enemy on their attack didn't actually make it all the way. So this should be pretty easy because the capture point is right there. They've got 2 minutes to get there. They should be able to take this. Now, they're not playing a standard composition for this. They are playing the Winston Wrecking Ball dive, which is going to be a very hyper aggro composition, super high tempo, and really good for a Tracer. Previously, Cross was playing where his team was playing double shield. A couple of variations in terms of the tank. Sometimes it was a Roadhog. The tanks have been swapping a lot here. But Cross was actually doing really well completely on his own. Very well kind of going on those flanks, taking them 1v1, not really working with the rest of his team. And that, based off of the title of this video, which is going to be flank timing, or when to flank, not how to flank, that's really where you're going to see this struggle. Now, you can see this setup. They just captured second point, and they're doing really fantastic. They've already moved up quite a bit. They've taken the high ground. They're starting to stage for their dive. Presumably, considering this is a VOD and we're taking a look and they lost, you can assume that some things are going to go wrong. So I think the best way to demonstrate how this goes poorly is actually take a look at this fight from the perspective of the defending Ana player. Now I'm just going to let this play for a bit, and it should become pretty obvious what's going on. So Ana is sitting in the back line, just super safe, super Narnia style. The opponent is trying to get some of that high ground control back. Now, the opponent with the defense here, they're playing Brigitte, Sigma, and Reaper. 3 characters with a ton more sustain, a lot more presence, just general damage. So if Team 1 here is going to win, they are really going to need to actually be coordinated with their Tracer and with their Winston in order to get some kills here. So their Wrecking Ball is just floating around here, but this Ana, like, super exposed. If somebody gets onto this Ana, there's not really going to be a lot of people that can help out immediately. So the first attempt, well, I guess the Wrecking Ball is just floating around in general, but I believe after this, Cross does see that the Ana is exposed, tries to jump off the high ground. The Ana has a bit of armor. Cross is going to have to back out.
Watching your back.
Look who comes into the backline after Cross is left. And Winston's going to have to leave. And not to miss a party, Wrecking Ball also a little bit later also attempts to just, I guess, say hi to NXS. They're just friends. So this is going to be an example. Is it at this point in time? There were multiple points in time throughout basically this entire fight where kind of the 3 divers on the team, the Winston, the Tracer, and the Wrecking Ball, are all on different targets. But when you are looking at the Ana player, for example, the Ana is going to be using nade for herself, going to use sleep for herself, but if you're going after her individually, the Winston's going to have to be very careful of her both of her cooldowns. Ana, same thing. You can't duel too close unless that's gone. But if you go in as a team, that Ana really doesn't have an option. Even if you do hit the cooldown onto one of the 3 targets that are on you, you're just going to get evaporated like nobody's business here. So this was probably one of the biggest things that I thought was missing from Cross's play. Very, very consistently, he was on pretty deep flanks, seeking people out who were very separated from their team, winning those duels. Now, this part of the map is really, really difficult because there's not really that many flank angles to go for. This kind of end of third point is very distinctive Junkertown, where you don't have the same massive flank opportunities, literally the longest sight lines out of every map on the first point. It's very, very different. So this type of map, if you are going to win, you have to be playing, if you are going to be winning with dive, you actually have to dive. You know, there's at some point when they do have more resources and just better characters in the brawl, if you're not playing as a team, you're going to lose as a team. So, you know, if you're if Cross was submitting this clip and, you know, he knew that he did really quite well, got a very impressive KDA, lots of damage, lots of eliminations, and he's like, oh, what more could I have done in order to win this game? You know, the real problem there is that you're asking what more could I have done, not what more could we have done as a team. So when you are going to kind of be pushing through into, you know, I usually say that in Diamond is the point in time where you really need to start looking at synergy within your team. You know, if you're playing Genji, you have to be diving with your Winston. If you're playing Brigitte, you need to be protecting your Ana. If you're playing, you know, Roadhog, you need to be pulling or hooking pulls, for example, like that. You to start winning consistently in Diamond, you really need to start bringing in these character synergies. In Masters, the compositions as a whole, how they interact, how they engage, how they move, rotate, all of that becomes very, very important starting in Masters. And when we're at this point where we're not even seeing the synergy in a Masters game, like I understand that this is very, very low Masters. Like this is your first game after making it into Masters, but you know, there's a lot of it's not even tunnel vision. You have a very good awareness and positioning of how to play the character individually, but to make it into the higher ranks, you need to start learning how to play that character as a team. And that means when there is an Ana and she is separated, if you scout that, you know, sure, you can try and go for it yourself, but you already were staging as a team. Like you had half the equation there with the Winston, the Wrecking Ball on the high ground. Find a target, destroy it, just collapse on the rest of the team and win. It's not a super difficult concept, but you know what? Sometimes we just get lazy because of how many ranked games we grind. So it's going to require comms, you know, but you don't, at the lower ranks, you don't really need comms. Just kind of be in your position either to engage when an opportunity arises or once your opponent or your teammates start pushing in. But at the higher ranks, really, it is going to be the timing on the dives. If you're not doing these the hard flanks nearly as much, go with your team, be with your team, attack the same target with your team, win games. Simple as that.